Hi, welcome to ElimuHub. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about experimental probability, and I am also going to do a couple of examples to show you how to calculate experimental probability. So what is experimental probability? Well, it is a probability that is obtained from real life situations by doing experiments, investigations, or by collecting previous data. Right. What is the difference then between this experimental and probability and others probability? Well, we have theoretical probability. In theory, for example, if we have a coin, we expect if we flip it, if we flip it 2 times, we will get the tail the first time maybe, and then we should get the head the other time. Well, that's not the case. If you do flip a coin, you could get twice, you could get heads both times. In fact, if you flip it 10 times, you could get just heads and nothing else. So that is experimental probability. And here are the few facts about experimental probability. It's also known as empirical or relative frequency. So if you see this written somewhere, find empirical probability or find relative frequency, then you know they are talking about experimental probability, just different words. It is obtained from carrying experiments, investigations, or by use of previous data, used to estimate events in real life situations. Then the more trials, the more reliable the estimate will be. So for example, if you flip a coin 10 times and record how many times you've got the head, and then you flip it 100 times and then you work out what the probability, how many heads have turned and what your probability is, then your second experiment will be more reliable. So we expect, for example, if we know that the chance of getting a tail when you flip a coin is 50%, that is theoretical. But if you flip a coin 5 times, it's not likely that you will get 50% head, for example. But the more you repeat the experiment, the more closer to the theoretical probability your experimental probability will be. Okay, so here's just a simple formula. Experimental probability is number of successful events divided by the total number of trials or experiments. So for example, if you flip a coin 50 times, and out of that 50 times, maybe you've got heads 20 times. So your experimental probability then is going to be the number of successful events. In this case, you want to know what is your chance of getting the head when you flip the coin 50 times. So number of successful events, well, you got the head 20 times. And the total number of flips that you did, that's your experiments or your trials, is 50 times. So that will give you 2/5. Okay. Here's an example. A company manufactures items for computers. The number of faulty items is recorded as shown below. Well, they produced 100 items, and out of that they found out 8 were faulty items. Then they did 200 and they found out 20 were faulty. 500 produced and they found out 45 were faulty items. 1,000 items produced and they got 82 items which were faulty. Question is, Copy and complete the table. Well, this is experimental probability because it's derived, the information that we have is from real life situation. So number of faulty items was 8 out of 100. So our experimental probability is 8 out of 100, which is 0.08. Next one then, 20 over 200, which is 0.1. 45 out of 500, which is 0.09. 82 out of 1000 is 0.082. Right, so that is done. Which is the best estimate of the probability of an item being faulty? And then you need to explain your answer. Well, if you remember, I just explained that the more experiments you do, the more reliable your probability. So, well, the best estimate in this case is going to be 0.082. So the probability of getting a faulty item in this case for this manufacturer, they could easily say is 0.082. And that's because the more experiments you have, the more reliable your probability estimate is. Question 2. The probability that Ronaldo scores a penalty is 0.75. Ronaldo is going to take 60 penalties. Work out an estimate for the number of times Ronaldo will score. Okay, so we need to find the number of times Ronaldo will score. So the number of successful outcome. Okay, so experimental probability that Ronaldo will score is going to be the number of times Ronaldo scores. Sorry for my pen there. Divide by the total number of penalties. Okay, so we know what the experimental probability is. That's 0.75. So we got 0.75. We don't know the number of scores, but we do know he's going to have 60 penalties. So number of scores then equals to 0.75 times 60, which is 45 goals. Okay, so for 60 penalties, we expect Ronaldo to score 45 goals. Not bad, is it? Thank you for watching.